What's happening, everybody? Happy New Year in advance. Big day today. We're live on my channel, and we'll be live on the Raiders channel, live on the Raiders YouTube channel. So look forward to that. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. We've got about 5 minutes before we start, and again, we'll be simulcast. Oh, nice.
Five minutes to open.
Thank you. What is happening, everybody? Good to see some people here. Thank you. Yeah, we're in the silver and black studios of the Raiders. The big boy studio. Yes. All right, so here's who we got. We got Lincoln Kennedy, who's going to join us first. Then we're going to have Antonio Pierce, the head coach. I already taped that. Man, was he fired up. You'll have to see it and hear it to get what I'm talking about. Levi Edwards from our digital team. And then in hour number 2, we're going to have Vic Tafur from The Athletic, great insider, football insider. And then Jeff Sherman over at the Westgate on the odds of some of these college football playoff games. Last show of the year, and this is it. It doesn't feel like the last show of the year. Normally when it's New Year's Eve, I'm not working. Hey, but we're working today, which is a blessing. We're going to be off tomorrow on all platforms on New Year's Day. And then back on the air, Thursday? And wrapping it up with the final game on Sunday. So it was a long year, man. A lot of good things happened. You know, a lot of great things happened with my family and my friends. My parents are with us, not with us here in Vegas, but with us at 86 and 85. That's a blessing. And life is good. Hope you have a great New Year. Thanks for everybody who supported this channel from the beginning. And we're trying to get some new subscribers before year end. So if you can hit share, that would be nice. Okay. Gotcha. We putting out our social when we start. Okay, let's do this. Hey, one of my favorites will be lighting the torch. Someone very, 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 very close to me lighting the torch, which I am thrilled about. It's a clue. That's a clue. So I am thrilled by that announcement coming. All right, here we go. Also, this is cool. This is live on Raiders YouTube. So not only live on JT Raw, hosted by the Bricktator, but you're going to get it live if you follow the Raiders. So that's pretty cool. Everybody in that locker room had a big smile because no one wants to lose. Just win, baby. Commitment to excellence, the will to win. We'd like to get Robert Spillane in the Pro Bowl. I think he's done enough.
What are you talking about? 2 years in a row now.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl caliber.
That's right. We got to.
I got to cut you off on this one.
Yep.
He's one of the best linebackers in football.
This guy, when you watch him play, he's a football player. Where they're able to put him on the field, it just makes him limitless.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown. I'm live at Raiders headquarters, and we're live on the Raiders YouTube channel, and I'm excited to be here. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you as we begin this final broadcast of 2024 on this platform, something we were talking about for a while, and we pulled it off, and we want to thank you, everyone in the Raider Nation, everyone around the world who follows the Raiders on YouTube and joins us as we put together this show every week, and then we turn it into a TV show here in Vegas. And as I begin, I want to thank the entire team on the other side of the wall at Silver and Black Productions for making this easy and making it a pleasure here. And thank you very much as we're rolling it out here one more time, and we'll keep it going hopefully in the offseason. But the Raiders had another victory, 2 in a row. They went into New Orleans where they won for the first time since 2016. And they put out their best game of the year. Their best game of the year in every category. They didn't turn it over. They turned it over twice. Aiden O'Connell played well. Amir Abdullah. Brock got the records. You know, I'm a big Brock guy. That's fantastic. And then time of possession, almost 38 minutes. Look, New Orleans isn't a powerhouse, but the Raiders went in there and dominated them. Absolutely dominated them. And they needed to win in that building. They only go to that building. That's an NFC team. Every 4 to 8 years, you don't know when they're going to go back. Raider Nation spent a lot of money to go, and they delivered an excellent performance. At the end of the year, where they're clearly out of the playoffs, New Orleans is out of the playoffs, but the Raiders went on a business trip, and we'll get to it with the head coach coming up here in a little bit, Antonio Pierce. They had some adverse conditions. They had problems with their flight. They had to shut everything down, and they had to spend most of the day here at headquarters. They didn't get in till after midnight, didn't get to bed till 2 in the morning, and then we're all there on time and ready to play, and they dominated. And there's no one pointing fingers. There's no one saying what could have been. They went out and did their job. They're a professional football team, and they played a professional football game, and everybody showed up, and this team has showed tremendous heart all year long. It hasn't showed up in the record books, but there were a couple of individual records in that game that we're really excited to talk about. So that's where we're at. We got one more game coming up against the LA Chargers. Remember last year, the Raiders put 63 up on the Chargers, and tip your cap to LA. They're in the playoffs. And Jim Harbaugh in year 1 has done a nice job getting them to the playoffs. They're a different looking team, and they're going to be a problem for a while for the Raiders. And the Raiders are going to make changes. We don't know what they are in the offseason, and the Raiders will try to get back to dominating and being a team that can get to the playoffs, along with possibly Denver, as they're playing their final game to try to get in, and the best team in football, the Kansas City Chiefs, that are going to stay in this division, and the Raiders are going to have to deal with them for a while. You know, just looking back on what the game meant in New Orleans, look, the number 1 seed is gone, period. So the word tanking is officially over for this year, if you believe that. If you believe that, I'm not here to argue with you. That is over in 2024. The Raiders are playing to win. Clearly, everybody on this team in the locker room and the coaches want to go out with a 3-game winning streak because, as Rich Gannon has told us all year long, and he's a former MVP, that this team wants to have momentum going into the offseason. The draft pick's going to be the draft pick no matter where it is. How about Brock Bowers last year at number 13? You like that pick? Could be one of the greatest Raider draft picks of all time after 1 year. And the Raiders will find out in the offseason where they'll draft. Maybe they'll trade up. We don't know what they're going to do. There's going to be a lot of trade value out there in free agency, free agent players available. But we're here to talk about that last game and preview the Chargers with the great Lincoln Kennedy, who joins us every week and kicks off Raiders Rundown. And Lincoln, to you and your family, Happy New Year coming up, and thanks for everything you do for us.
Blessings to you and yours, JT, and all the Raider Nation viewers and listeners out there. Thank you for joining us, and it's good to be with you, brother.
Yeah, as we talked about this game going into it, there was Brock Bowers who was going to break some records if he got the targets. He had 7 for 7 and 77 yards. That was good enough to break the all-time Raiders single-season reception record, the all-time tight end record, and the all-time rookie reception record. All of that came together. There was a great photo with them after the game in the locker room with all 3 game balls for that. What was it like, Lincoln, calling such an historic achievement by Brock Bowers?
Well, it was really fun. I mean, you think about it, it's been a long time since the Raiders have had such an impact at the tight end position. Now, people will point back to Darren Waller. Well, the difference is, and I'll certainly accept that for what it's worth, but the difference is Brock Bowers is a better route runner than Darren Waller was, and he's more concise with his route distribution within this offense. There were many times, and not to be too critical of Darren, that I saw him running your routes into the same area. So it's really refreshing to have such a young tight end that really makes it uncomfortable for defenses, because you can't cover him with the linebacker. You can't cover him with a safety. If you're going to double team him, there's going to leave other opportunities open. And we've been able to reap the rewards from that because we've seen the ball being spread around by this offense because of the commitment that defenses to take away Brock Bowers. So it's refreshing to see, JT.
Yeah, Lincoln, I think it comes down to the targets with him. If you target him 12 times, he'll give you 11 receptions. Whatever it is, the amount of targets and his value is getting the ball early. And as we look at some of this for our viewers and our listeners, I'll tell you 108 receptions, most by a rookie in NFL history, Puka Nacua, and then breaking Darren Waller's record, as Lincoln talked about, and then Mike Ditka's record of over 60 years. And how about this? 1,144 receiving yards, most by a rookie since Amari Cooper. This season got away from the Raiders when it came to the schedule and especially the injuries, and they didn't live up to the hype. But I thought it was very important to stamp this kid's first season with these records because you know the history as good as anybody, Lincoln. You played on one of the greatest teams when you went to the Super Bowl. Before you, there was Todd Christensen, and there was Dave Casper. And you know Raymond Chester very well. And Raymond was a legendary player in the history of the AFL, NFL. To be included in that group and maybe someday be on the walls of this facility for that, I think is super important.
If you think about that historical breakdown that you just had, JT, how long has it been, aside from Darren Waller, that the Raiders have had as quick of a production and as much production out of the tight end position? You go back to some of those names, that's the 70s and early 80s and stuff like that. So it's been a long time. So I really like what the offense has done. And here's the thing. I think if you take it as a whole, what we saw this past game, and you mentioned it in the opening, this is what the Raiders offense wanted to be. They wanted to have the ability to run the football, to use play action to open up the opportunities downfield, not necessarily commit totally to the pass if you don't have to, but be able to have a balanced offense. And as much as you talked about, JT, in the opening, this was the best game of the Raiders this season. They won by double digits, haven't won on the road since they were in September back in Baltimore. This was by far the best Raiders win throughout this season.
Well, Link, I think they heard you on our pregame show when we were talking about the offensive line and how many new players they might need next year. Maybe that was piped into the locker room in New Orleans because the offensive line played very well. They had a long drive right out of the gate. They didn't get a touchdown, but they got 3. Finally, we saw a game where they were getting the push. They were blowing up the line of scrimmage. They were moving the line of scrimmage, which opened up for a big first half, especially scrimmage yards for Amir Abdullah.
Double teams at the point of attack. They had great man blocking, great possessive blocking in the sense where they were moving one way and the cutback lanes were there for the running backs to take advantage of. So I was very happy for the offensive line. And hey, if it takes that for this offensive line to play like they did in the Saints, I'll be critical of them every week. I'll talk about people needing jobs left and right, JT, if it comes down to that. But this offense got pushed. And I had watched a lot of film on the Saints defense, and I saw where their weaknesses were, especially between the tackles. And for the most part, their defensive tackles and defensive ends are active, but they're not true penetrators in the sense where they get pushed back like many other teams did, or even like the weeks before when the team played Atlanta and couldn't get any push.
I love the fact that everybody came to play. And I want to get to this again because I'm going to be talking about it the entire hour. You knew how hard it was for you to travel there. And Jason Horowitz, well, the team was delayed significantly. They got in. By the time they hit the pillow, it was 2 a.m. And you know this better than anybody. Sometimes you can sleep. Sometimes you can't. And everybody knows, set the alarm. They got to get up. And it's in the early window. And they started that fast. They were ready to play. Lincoln, it seemed like they had a chip on their shoulder after the one victory to stack another win and win 2 in a row.
Good for them. Really is. I tip my hat to him. Look, Scott Turner and his offensive staff came out with a plan. I don't know if Scott scripts his first 20 plays, but the plays did work. As you mentioned, that drive to open up the game. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that consistently out of this team. No, they didn't come away with a 7, they came away with 3, but it's still the starts. You have a long drive to open up the game that resonates and sends shockwaves through opposing defenses when you see stuff like that. So kudos to them. I really tip their hat. As far as the rest goes, guys are resting as they prepare to go on a trip. It's not too, hectic. It is a little bit of a burn when you can't get into your hotel room and get in your bed as quickly as possible. But at the same point, you know that you're going on a business trip. You take care of your body. You got to be responsible, got to be professional. Sometimes it happens like that. And then even in this case, JT, I think we saw the best out of this team in spite of the difficulties they had getting to New Orleans.
Lincoln, before we get to the Chargers, I just want to mention again his receptions. I'm not saying he's going to get 120 receptions every year. That's hard for anybody to do, but it's just nice that the Raiders have a 100 reception guy in the lineup. Normally when you have that, you count him as a wide receiver, and that's either wide receiver 1, and sometimes, if you're fortunate, wide receiver 2. So how do you look at his production going forward, considering Jacoby Myers is here, Trey Tucker is here, Michael Mayer is here? They all need the football, but I think the Raiders are going to be active in either free agency or the draft, bringing in another wide receiver because Devontae Adams is gone. But I look at it as Brock's putting up wide receiver numbers.
Yeah, you're right about that. It just goes to show you how invaluable the tight end position can be, especially when you have a capable route runner who can do slippery in the middle of the field. Look, I've always believed within today's game, within today's confines and rules, JT, that the middle of the field is wide open for many respects, in many ways. And the rules that allow it either give you an automatic first down upon contact or pass interference. So it really works for the offense. Slot receivers and tight ends can be a luxury if you have them, and I think you have that. As far as the outer wide receivers, yes, I do believe the Raiders need to draft a wide receiver. No slight at Jacoby Myers, but to me, he's really not a 1. I believe he's a 2. You got Trey Tucker who can stretch the field. Obviously, we see some passes out of that. It's just as this offense evolves, in my opinion, JT, you've got to find a way to utilize all those weapons to get them involved. It's not necessarily you go to Nate O'Connell and say, okay, this play is for Jacoby Myers or this play is for Trey Tucker. You allow him as your quarterback, whoever you evolve to, you allow them to look and go through the progression. If they're open, they're open. But the big thing is you don't want to force the ball. And that's why you don't want to spoon feed a quarterback information about where they want to go with the football. Take your reads, read through your progressions, make the right read, keep the ball in the offense's hand.
Lincoln Kennedy's our guest. Let's go to the Chargers. Man, their defense is good on third down. They get off the field, and then they give it back to a team that wants to run it and a team that can throw it. The Chargers have a season opposition third down conversion rate of 36%. That's 9th in the league. Right. So the Raiders are coming off a really good game when New Orleans was only 1 of 10 on third down, and the Raiders had one of their best days. This is going to be a critical game at Allegiant Stadium to stay on the field and not give it back to Justin Herbert. And however long he plays, the Chargers might play the starters a half, might play him a quarter, might play him the whole game. We don't know. But Raiders have got to build on that time of possession in their third down conversion rate.
Well, like I said, with the New Orleans game, we saw firsthand what this offense is supposed to look like. The thing is, we came into this season knowing the defense was going to be the strength. Defense has been playing well without the stars. Wilkin, Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz are down, all these guys that are down, but they're still playing well to keep you involved in the games. So I think the defense can do that. I think that the offense, as far as keeping the ball and possessing the ball, is if they can ride along the sort of wave that they created in New Orleans, they're going to set you in the right motion going forward because it shows potentially what you can do. Yes, There still needs to be a fine tuning of some athletes here and there, but you have an idea of what the philosophy and the outlook is for Scott Turner and his offense, and the potential of what they have already in the cabinet of what they can do.
Well, if you're looking for a test, if the Raiders are studying for a test, the Chargers have the best red zone defense, allowing only 44.7% red zone touchdown. So here's the way I look at it. I get furious when you get in the red zone and you don't throw it in the end zone. You and I have been talking about that for decades now. Get in the red zone and throw it in the end zone. You said it perfectly. This is a league now based on throwing flags. You throw a ball in the end zone to one of these guys, you might get a flag. If you don't throw an interception, an incomplete pass, the Raiders try to run it in, I think, too often. They get inside the 5, they want to prove that they can run it, and then all of a sudden it's third down and they have to pass it. This is a Chargers red zone defense that is very good, led by Derwin James on the back end. Lincoln, when you shorten the field in the red zone and you got Derwin James back there, Bosa and Khalil Mack, what do you recommend to get the ball out there quickly and attack the end zone?
Well, I recommend they load up the line of scrimmage with all their extra offensive linemen as well as the tight ends, and they load up the backfield. Look, I'm an offensive lineman.
Yes.
If we're not getting pushed, I'm not happy. So I want to push the ball. The problem I have with throwing in the red zone ultimately, JT, is that with the inconsistencies and the pass blocking of this offensive line, and you talk about those potent rushers for the Chargers especially, it's hard to have enough time for the receivers to get down and find the openings in the zone or in the area for you to be able to put the ball in. I do think there are opportunities, but you have to have good protection. If you watched a little bit of that game last night with the 49ers and the Detroit Lions, I saw firsthand how their offensive line was able to negate the pertinent rush that the 49ers have notoriously hung their hats on. That's what you've got to do if you're going to be able to throw the ball in the red zone. I am not a big fan of going out of shotgun when you're down to 5, close to the 3-yard line or whatever it is going in. I'm not a fan of that. I believe you need to take the ball from under center and you need to push. And if it comes down to a part where you got to push, like the Philadelphia Eagles do, then so be it. You push, but you got to push and you got to instill your will. I'm from that mindset. It's up to this offensive line to go out there and slap somebody in the mouth.
Yeah, I'm all for Aiden O'Connell on the sneak, too, inside the 1-yard line. He's a big guy. He's a physical guy. He should be able to do this. Yep. Wrapping it up with the great Lincoln Kennedy, the Chargers secondary in week 1. And by the way, I despise this play week 1, week play 18 thing. I don't like it. You play the beginning and the last game. I'm not a fan of that. Yeah. Bowers had 6 receptions for 58 yards. The most tight end yardage allowed by the Chargers all year was Kelsey at 89. So they do a pretty good job here on the tight end, and their secondary allows only 6.7 yards per pass play. That's 5th in the league. So, Lincoln, maybe this is a game, as you're talking about, you got to run it to set up some form of play action, because if you don't have play action and you can't establish the run, the Chargers are just going to sit back and play defense and ball hawk.
Yeah, they made adjustments in that game 1, especially to Devontae Adams' deep dig routes. Mm-hmm. They put a robber right there in the middle of the field, Derwin James. He took that away, and the Raiders didn't really have an answer for it. Coming into this game, I agree with you. They still need to run the football and need to have some balance. But I do believe they're going to bracket Brock Bowers. I believe you're going to have Derwin James and maybe a linebacker underneath there who will try to take him out of the equation. So there are going to be other opportunities, maybe for Michael Mayer and the 2 tight end set, maybe for Trey Tucker or Jacoby Myers, whomever it might be. There will be other opportunities. Plus, I believe that you have an advantage with Madison and Abdullah on the perimeter with their linebackers catching routes out of the backfield. Whether they are angle routes or curl routes, I think there are opportunities for you to get the ball to your running back. We saw that in week 1. I think because their linebackers are a little bit delayed in getting to their right spots, especially in zone or man-to-man coverage. So I think there are opportunities there as well, JT.
The Raiders had a really tough year with turnovers, and now they're 30th with minus 15 in differential. The Chargers are plus 11. That's 4th, and that's what Jim Harbaugh was able to do. He came in, he wanted to have ball control. He didn't want Herbert throwing it 40 times a game. And I knew that was going to be the Chargers' evolution. I didn't think it would be this good in year 1 and they'd make the playoffs. So, again, it pains me to say this, but I tip my cap to them for their philosophy. This is going to come down to the turnovers here. Chargers and Raiders both had at least +1 takeaways in the last 3 games. And Lincoln, there hasn't been a lot of good this year when it comes to the record, but the last 2 games, the turnover differential has been a plus for the Raiders, and that says something.
JT, every coach I've ever played for said if you lose the turnover battle, chances are you're not going to win the football game. It comes down to that. You got to take care of the football. So, Zach, to your point, the Raiders haven't done as good of a job as, say, other teams in the league, and that's the reason. One of the reasons why they're at the record they are right now. So, look. Football's simple. It's not a complex game. Take care of the football, do what you need to do, try to score more points than the other team. And, of course, you understand those guys get paid on the other side of the ball too, JT. So this is always a big test, but I'm hoping, in all honesty, JT, I'm hoping the Raiders can finish off with a win because I don't want to go through the entire division this season over, if you know what I mean.
That's a really good point down the stretch. So, Lincoln, the new year is going to come up here, and we'll talk throughout the offseason, especially on radio, but the Raiders didn't make the playoffs this year. Going into next year, we all know there's going to be changes when it comes to what could be everything here. There's going to be a lot of different decisions that have to be made. But our offseason is going to be predominantly talking about the draft and free agency in 2025. And the Raiders got a lot of money to spend. Tom Brady's going to be in the building from a quarterback perspective. Mark Davis wants to win. Max Crosby better win. He wants to win. We had the year of Brock Bowers here. So how optimistic are you, man? Because big decisions are going to be made the next couple months here.
I'm very optimistic. The Raiders have I think 8 draft choices off the top of my head as I'm looking at it in front of me. 8 draft choices, cap space, and they're right now they're cap friendly. Yes, they need to re-sign some of the guys that they have. I think that are being valuable to the team. Some guys like Merrick and those guys moving forward. But the thing is that they have potential because they have options. If it comes down to it, as we look at the draft and once we get closer to it, no matter what the record is for the Raiders, I believe they have an opportunity because a lot of the teams that are in front of the Raiders aren't necessarily going to have to go for a quarterback or a high-profile pick. So I believe there are opportunities, but we'll address that as we go along. Look, the finish strong shows me that these guys are being professional in that locker room. All this past month and some change, JT, I know you've been asked the same question. How come we don't tank? How come we don't just shut it down? I don't know how you do that as a professional. Mm-hmm. If you walk into a basketball player and say, hey, miss a couple of shots, that's point shaving. That's illegal, right? You can't do the same thing with either football players. You're not going to tell them, you're not going to tell me you don't have to go out there and give it my all because you're hoping to draft someone else. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy to let my team down. So I'm impressed with how these coaches and these players have been approaching these past few games.
Happy New Year, Link. Best to you and the boys. Have a great year coming up.
Happy New Year, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
There's the great Lincoln Kennedy. How blessed are we to have him the entire year on multiple platforms here. This is our lineup. If you're watching the morning tailgate, our morning show, Vinny Bonsignor, Clay Baker, Vince Sapienza was added this year. Great job. The Rich Eisen show I'm on every day, Pacific time, noon to 2. And then Q Myers, Unnecessary Roughness, comes on after this show for 3 hours. So coming up next, we'll have the head coach, Antonio Pierce, after winning 2 in a row. We'll get into it with him on the travel dilemma of getting out there, how the team played hard. Aiden O'Connell. Got to give Aiden a lot of credit here. Aiden's been injured a few times this year. He didn't start the season off, and then he got the starting job. Then he went down, then came back again. He's playing with a lot of heart. Amir Abdullah, I want to ask the coach about him too and the way he's playing. And for a defensive line that doesn't have Christian Wilkins, doesn't have Max Crosby, and never had Malcolm Kuntz, what a job they've done. Over the last month or two, they're getting after the quarterback, which is really important. And man, Isaiah Palomal, he was the AFC Defensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago and came back with another big game. So a lot good happening here from a personnel perspective. A lot of reserves, practice squad players were called on to step up, and they're playing hard. And that's been the theme of this season as they're still searching for wins. Head coach Antonio Pierce joins us next. This is Raiders Rundown.
From Caesars Superdome today, Week 17, Saints and Raiders.
O'Connell could not deliver the pass as he was grabbed and then floats it to Brock Bowers.
All right, everybody, we're going to get the head coach coming up here. I already taped it, so I'll give you a chance to watch that, and then we'll be back.
Across the field, O'Connell to the near side for Myers and a touchdown. This time the Raiders cash in. A 5-man rush. And over the middle, it is caught. It is Brock Bowers. His 5th catch of the day puts him past Puka Nacua for the most catches by a rookie. Too high, diving attempt, picked off by Jack Jones. O'Connell seeking.
You hear us, everyone? We're good.
Marketplace on Lakeview Parkway, and we're celebrating this holiday huddle by having 8 families in the community do a shopping spree here with the Raiders. We get them out shopping spree, and I know you can spend $8,000. It's in that we're talking about the joy that potentially these families feel as they go do the shopping and as they see these superstars in their community.
Yep. Raiders.com is your home for all things silver and black. Read Levi Edwards' article breaking down his 3 key plays, including Brock Bowers' record-breaking receptions and Amir Abdullah's career-high performance, which all led to a Raiders win in New Orleans. To stay up to date on all things Raiders, go to Raiders.com/news. Welcome back, everybody, to Raiders Rundown. JT along with Levi Edwards, straight back with a victory from Bourbon Street. A lot of travel issues to get there, but you got on the ground. You saw some Raider Nation outside the dome, inside the dome, and the Raiders got the win.
Most definitely. That's all that matters is getting the win. Obviously, I kind of joked with a couple of my friends. We didn't really get to New Orleans in our timing, but we got there in God's timing, and that's really all that mattered. Despite whatever sleep the team did or did not get, did not matter. They came in and they really dominated for really all 4 quarters.
Yeah, the 38 minutes in overall time of possession was key. You've done an unbelievable job this year charting Brock Bowers. You have access to him in the locker room, on the road. You fly with the team. Just give me a big picture on the journey from Costa Mesa, even before that, to draft pick at number 13 and now breaking all these records. What does it mean?
It means a lot to him, and I'm really glad you asked. All you guys, Raider Nation, we have a feature story coming out on Brock Bowers actually later this week or today. So I'm really excited for you guys to read that, to really get into the mind of Brock Bowers. I guess the best way to put him as a person and just him as a player is a complex simplicity. And I know that sounds really weird, but he's a guy that really just likes to keep things simple. And the way that he plays on the field is just with freedom. He just plays free, and he plays to be a force to be reckoned with, even though off the field he's not really necessarily like that. He's a very calm, poised young man, does not really like to interact with the media a whole lot, does when he needs to, but he's really just an all-ball guy. And to see him develop in the way that he has, not even just becoming more comfortable on the field, but more comfortable around the locker room and the building, really just doing what he does. He's just a low-maintenance superstar. I don't know a better way to really put it. He's just a guy that comes in, he wants the ball, he wants to do his job, and he wants to go home and enjoy his family.
It reminds me in a way of Marcus Allen when he played for the Raiders. So low-key. And Marcus is low-key now if you see him at the games. And Brock is different because this is a franchise that had the Mad Stork, Ted Hendricks, and Ken Stabler, Phil Villapiano, guys with bravado who would talk and tell you what they thought. I just love the fact that Brock is all ball. Let's get into the Raiders secondary. Really like the growth of this unit. I wish Jacorian Bennett was healthy, so he'd be getting all these reps opposite of Jack Jones. But Trayvon Merrick and Isaiah Palomalu on the back end, what have you seen the last couple of weeks?
I've seen them really play great complementary football And really, when I look at Trayvon Merrick and the season he's had, he's evolved into the guy that I believed he would become when he was drafted out of TCU, and he was the Jim Thorpe Award winner. And really, they've been able to find his niche in play calling with him, and of just utilizing him all over the field. You know, when he got to the Raiders, he was just a guy who was like a single high safety, really stayed in the backfield, you know, didn't want anybody to go deep on him. But they got him in man coverage. They got him in the box. They got him blitzing. They got him doing a whole lot of things with a lot of different schemes within that defense, with Patrick Graham really utilizing him to the best of his ability. And the same thing with Palomau, where he's become a better communicator. And that was the thing that we needed to see from him when he replaced Marcus Epps, is how will he be able to communicate? How will he be able to step into that role? And he's a guy that won AFC Defensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago with the two forced fumbles, a guy that is really athletically gifted, really built, and can also do the same multi-dimensional things that you see Trayvon Merrick doing, and really just a good guy. Isaiah, when I talk to him in the locker room, whenever I have any sort of interaction with him, he's just a good guy, really level-headed, a guy that really wants to make the most of his opportunities. So I'm really glad to see him doing as well as he is.
Levi Edwards is our guest from the digital team. Check out all his work at Raiders.com. Very important. I'm going to follow up on that. Going into the year, this is a Trayvon Merrick contract year. So I wanted to know what he could do. Not only has he played well, other teams are probably going to be interested, along with the Raiders. And Isaiah Palomau, I look at him, he had to find his way to find a starting job in this league, let alone the Raiders, and he's elevated himself there. That is coaching. That is Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham taking two players. We know the season hasn't lived up to the hype. We know what the record is. But they're coaching those guys right to the end, and they're playing their best football.
Most definitely. It's gonna be some tough decisions to make for Tom Telesco when you have a guy like Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Merrick, Isaiah Palomau, Devon Diablo, Robert Splint, a lot of these guys, you know, that have some contract stuff coming up, and they really have risen their stock. And all credit to Patrick Graham for really getting this defense to invest. And it's crazy to think about how we've seen the best defensive football from the Raiders these past 4 weeks with no Max Crosby, no Christian Wilkins, no Malcolm Kuntz, no Jacorian Bennett. Nate Hobbs has been in and out. So it's crazy how these guys are stepping up. 8 turnovers over the last 4 games, bunches of sacks, a lot of pressure, 44% pressure percentage in the 4 games without Max Crosby this season. So it's just really been incredible to see a lot of these young guys step up and really fulfill their role and buy in.
That's a great point you make. If you include Epps and Hobbs, which you did, and Bennett, those are 6 out of 11 starters gone for most of the year. I mean, we're talking about the core of the defense.
The whole defense.
The whole defense being on IR or injured and being gone for a while. It's crazy to look back on that. Let's talk about the Chargers and their offense. Justin Herbert's one of the greatest live quarterbacks I've ever seen, and I've seen them all, from Montana to Elway to Marino. His arm, I've seen him throw the ball 30 yards to the back of the end zone at Allegiant Stadium, where defenders who are as far away of us couldn't put their hand up and knock it down. That's how great he is when he throws the ball on target. But Jim Harbaugh is taking away his attempts, and he's lessening them so they can run it. But what jumps out at me is Dobbins when he's healthy, and Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey played with Bowers at Georgia. I knew he'd be a decent player. I thought he'd be a 3, and he's putting up 2 numbers here. He's having a hell of a year for the Chargers.
He really is. And kind of going back to what you're saying about Herbert, Justin Herbert has one of the prettiest balls I've seen. He has one of the prettiest balls thrown that I've seen in a long time in the league. Him and Michael Penix right now, I really like the way that they throw the ball. And really, the fact that Jim Harbaugh has been able to come in and really just make the team not one-dimensional, but really get things going on the ground. J.K. Dobbins is a guy who I think should win Comeback Player of the Year, if I'm being honest, a guy that's fought through so many injuries and has really become a focal point of this offense and has made them a lot less predictable. Because when you're facing Justin Herbert in the last couple of years, the Raiders have either gone to SoFi or they've come here. If you get pressure on Justin Herbert and you make him a one-dimensional quarterback, you'll come out and you'll probably win the game. But now with the way their offense is set up and the way that they're run blocking and the way they're doing things, it just makes things so less predictable when you go up against Justin Herbert. And he really has a receiver 1 in Ladd McConkey. He's a guy I didn't really necessarily know if he was going to be as good as he is out the gate. But this is a guy just like Brock Bowers I saw in the SEC. I watched a lot of SEC football as an Alabama guy. And he was a dog, literally and metaphorically, a dog at Georgia. So to see him come out and do what he's been doing along with Braca is really something that I'm shocked but not surprised by, just by the production.
McConkey's coming off the game in New England, 8 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that's a big-time performance. So we're not going to know until kickoff what the Chargers' philosophy is going to be. Do they want to play the starters a half? Do they want to play them a quarter? Do they want to play them 2 series? I mean, Antonio Pierce sat where you are moments ago, and he said he didn't care. He just wanted to talk about the Raiders and what they're going to do. The Raiders are bringing the energy to this game. They're playing to go 3 in a row into the offseason, which means something to this team. For a guy who's embedded in the team, knows how disappointing this season is, tell us about this game coming up and what those players in the locker room are playing for, because several will not be back. This is the last game they'll ever play for the Raiders in that famed uniform, and I expect them all to go out there and play the toughest and most physical game of the year.
You're exactly right. And I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, JT, because I'm not immune to the comments on the internet. I'm not immune to what the fan base is saying. And honestly, a lot of them are upset that we're winning games now because they wanted to tank and they wanted to get a higher draft pick. And I'm here to tell you and tell everybody else, the guys in that locker room, they don't give a damn about any of that. A lot of them aren't going to be here next season. They're playing for the shield on their helmet, and they're playing for the last name on the back of the jersey. And you've seen that over the last few weeks of them really coming out, playing with effort, playing for each other. And despite whatever the record is, even when I was talking to Amir Abdullah, who had a career game against the Saints, he said, we're playing for each other. And despite whatever the record is, this is one of the closest teams I've ever been a part of because we play for each other. We care about each other. We've seen each other at our worst. And so you can expect, no matter what the Chargers decide to do, whether they go full starters or not, they already have a playoff berth locked in. We don't know what they're going to do. What I do know is that the Raiders are going to come out and they're going to play with effort, they're going to play with pride, and they're going to play like they have everything on the line. No matter what draft positioning is, no matter what the record is, no matter, no playoffs, any of that, they're going to come out and they're going to play with passion.
Yeah, and if you want the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft, the Raiders can go up and trade for those players. They're probably not going to be there to select at 1 and 2, and that happens. And I said tank season and conversation's over. It ended on my shows. It's over. We're going into a new year, but the Raiders have an all-time record, wins and losses. And when it started off in the 60s and they had some rough roads and Mr. Davis came in and had one of the greatest turnarounds ever, they were the team of the decades in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And now the last 20 years, they've had up and down seasons and losing seasons. They want to win every game because it's going to matter 50 years from now, 40 years from now, what their lifetime record is against a team in their division. This is a division rival. I tip my cap to the Chargers. They're going to the playoffs. I didn't think they would. It's a testament to what they've done in their offseason, which the Raiders are going to have to match in the upcoming Raiders offseason. Give me one takeaway you want to see in this game. One thing at Allegiant Stadium, the last time in front of these fans, you must see.
I really just want to see the defense ball out. They've really impressed me over the last couple of weeks, especially with how much they've lost, in terms of a depth. In terms of depth, they've lost over the season. And to see these young guys really come out and make plays, you see DeCam Richardson, you see Jonah Laulu, you see Thomas Harper, you see all these guys coming out and making plays and really showing what they can do moving forward. And that's what it comes down to is what I want to see in this game is I want to see a glimpse of the future. I want to see a glimpse of what is to come. And that's really the what I'm really looking forward to, not even really on defense, but even really in all 3 phases of the game. I want to see those young guys come out and show why they belong on this team next year.
Lastly, let's get into Robert Spillane. He gets no respect around the league compared to how great of a player he is. And look, he's not an elite Ray Lewis type of player, but he reminds me of Greg Biekert when Greg Biekert played here and developed such a great career with the Silver and Black. So the Pro Bowl, his opportunity to be known more around the league next year, the Raiders got to make a decision with him coming up. I think he's a hell of a player. He represents this organization and the city in high regard.
I have to agree with you, JT. And like you said, a Rodney Dangerfield level of no respect when it comes to Robert Spillane in the season that he's had. He's a guy, my father, he's a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So I have watched a lot of Robert Spillane play even before I saw him here with the Raiders. And he was a guy I believe was typecasted as a third and short run stopping linebacker. And he's come here and he's really flipped the switch. He's completely changed the narrative of being an every down linebacker, being able to have sideline to sideline instincts and speed. He almost had his third interception of the season, against the Saints. Played another really great game. Has been the anchor of the defense without Max Crosby in there. So he's a guy that has done everything above and beyond what the Raiders could have asked for when they signed him a season ago. And he's a guy that I believe should be a Pro Bowler, deserves to be a Pro Bowler. And just to see his maturation, not even just from when he first came to the Raiders to now, but just going back to when he was from Pittsburgh to now, watching him, he's just a completely different player.
Hey, have a good New Year. You've been great to us this year. You have a nice career going. I read everything you put out there, and so do the fans at Raiders.com. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate Raider Nation always.
You got it. There he is, Levi Edwards, everybody, as we wrap it up, as we keep going here. So I want to thank everybody for this hour as we're on Raiders YouTube. And you can check out my YouTube channel heading into the new year, JT the Brick, YT. This is our lineup for those who are watching the morning tailgate. The Rich Eisen Show, noon to 2 is when I come up, and Unnecessary Roughness with Q Myers here every day. And Q, I'm going to give him a big shout out. The guy's everywhere. He's our program director. He works for ESPN. He does national shows and does a great job getting us to the Super Bowl, where we'll be live on Radio Row from New Orleans for our Super Bowl coverage here on the flagship of the Silver and Black. So thanks, everyone. This is our last show of 2024. We have much more programming coming up here in 2025. We'll be at the Torch. Man, I'm going to do the pregame show with Eric Allen at the Torch, and we got a nice surprise for you right after our pregame show. So try to come up there if you can. Keep watching and listening to all of our programming. It's all connected at Raiders.com and on all the social media channels. For everyone at Silver and Black Productions, I want to wish you a great new year, a happy new year. I hope it's safe. I hope you're healthy, and I hope it brings the Raider Nation together. And this offseason, as I said on all my platforms, will be it's clearly the most important offseason in Las Vegas Raider history. I think it's going to be one of the most important in the past 20 or 30 years. A lot's going to happen, and you're going to read about it, you're going to watch it, and you're going to listen to it all right here at Raiders.com. Once again, have a great, healthy, and happy new year. All right. Now we do radio. All right, hour number 2 coming up next. So we're going to do this on this feed. I'll let everybody know. We got Vic Tafur coming up. I'll probably do another 20 minutes here. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. So we're going to come right back. From YouTube to television to now radio and YouTube. Ari, you can hear me? Okay. You got Vic's number, Vic Tafur? All right, so we're going to do him at 1:05. Okay. Then Jeff Sherman at 1:30. I don't know if you have his number. I'll give it to you. Okay. Yeah. If you get callers or anything. Or do you have my phone number to text? So text me now so we can talk on text. Okay, just put it in the text and have it loaded. So if I want to throw to it, I'll set you up with it. Yep. And you know me, I like long music beds when I come out of the music. Play the beds a little bit longer. Yeah, keep it just a little bit. Yep. I just played AP. We just had him on. I'm good. You can play whatever you want for a rejoin. If you want to rejoin with a touchdown or AP, do whatever you want. Okay. What's going on, man? You seeing what we're doing for you, man, with all this content, man? Oh, look at this guy saying, I hate the fans and First Amendment right. We give you everything you want, Wheelie. If you can't handle it, Wheelie, and you're a little coward and you can't handle, having to show respect on the show, you're going to get blocked into oblivion. Okay? So we'll put you in a little timeout. I'm going to put you in a little baby timeout for 30 minutes. Okay? The Bricktator. And if you don't like it, remember, I don't need anybody here. I don't need anybody. This is a luxury. YouTube, the Bricktator. So enjoy it. And if you don't like it, don't come back. If you like it, stay, right? We're staying. Kenny's staying. Can you imagine fans thinking I'm mean to them when they come after me so nasty and aggressive? Can you imagine that?
Happy hour in town, 5 to 7 p.m. and midnight to 2 a.m.
It's the JT the Brick Show, broadcasting live from the Finley Cadillac Performance Studio, your silver and black home to sound off for over 25 years. And now, here's JT the Brick.
Oh, yes, it is. It's our last hour of 2024. And as I said, I don't know many people, maybe other than Q. Let me give that shout out, who have done more hours on radio than me in 2024. And it doesn't feel like it's ending because I got another hour to go. And we're going to get this going, and we're going to give you the best hour we can. Vic Tafur joins us from The Athletic in 5 minutes. Jeff Sherman with the moving odds. If you want to gamble, you want to bet, you do. Jeff Sherman is the VP of Risk Management, the guy who sets the odds at the sharpest book in the world, the Westgate. We have him on every 2 weeks. And that's about it, everybody. Raiders played the Chargers. They've won 2 in a row. They will not make the playoffs. We knew that a while ago. They started off 2-2. They lost 10 in a row, and the playoffs were out the door. Now the Raiders are playing for pride. They showed a lot of pride the last 2 weeks. They're trying to win. Give them credit for that. If you don't want to give them credit, we'll see you next year. That's kind of my message. I'll have my State of the Union at the end of this hour. You do not want to miss it. Every year, I do my last show, and I give my State of the Union for about 2 or 3 minutes, a review of the year and what I expect going forward. I sense you want to be around for that because I will not sugarcoat anything. So we just did an hour on the Raiders YouTube channel, and we did a lot. We had Antonio Pierce on. He was very aggressive, which I love. Very aggressive. I had questions to ask about the Chargers, and I wanted to preview the Chargers, and he said, no, it's about the Raiders. I was good with that. We get 9 to 10 minutes with him. He's been fantastic with us all year. From a media perspective, he comes in here. Again, we're one of the only teams in the entire NFL that gives you a head coach every week. They don't do that in a lot of other markets. They don't have a head coach's show. They don't have a head coach's segment. The head coach goes to the podium in front of the media twice a week, and that's it. This guy shows up week in and week out. And everybody wanted him as the head coach last year, pretty much 90% of the Raider Nation. When he turned the season around down the stretch, they were enjoying themselves winning. They beat the Chiefs on Christmas, and then he became the head coach of the team. Now he's trying to fight down the stretch to get more wins. Give the guy credit for having this team ready to play. All I've said on this platform is show bleeping respect for the coaches when they're in this building. When they're in this building, if you want them out of the building at the end of the year, that's your prerogative. If you don't like the coach and you think there's a better one out there, you have the right to that opinion. But when they come in this building and they give you everything they got and they don't hide and they come to the microphone and they look you in the eye and they give you everything they got, they deserve your respect. And I think Antonio Pierce, if you see him in person, you better give him respect because the people who don't give him respect would never do it in front of him. And he's been nothing but outstanding in this studio. for 17 interviews that he's done with me. He's been outstanding, and he's been on time. And these coaches at times, man, they're busy. They got to keep practice going. He's come up here on time, and he's done an unbelievable job trying to be ready all the time. And I appreciate that. So we'll talk about this last game, and then after this last game, next week we're going to get in here, and we are going to let pretty much everybody do what they always do. Talk about whatever you want, but there'll be different topics on the table. And I'll be pivoting more to the NFL playoffs and then any type of breaking news with the Raiders that have anything to do with coaching, personnel, players, whatever it's going to be. You know where you can find it on the flagship of the Silver and Black. So who's going to be the last callers that I take this year? Who was the first caller I took this year in January? I have no idea. Who will be the last? I will remember because they'll be in this hour. And I want to thank everybody in advance. It's been a tough year. Emotionally, I tried to be at my best the entire year. I was not at my best at all times. I'm honest about that. I was very emotional this year. This season was very difficult, but I came in here and I gave everything I got. I never took a day off emotionally, always had it ready to go, gave you everything I got, either home or on the road, at the Torch, on the television shows, on the YouTube shows, and especially on this radio show. Everything we got, and we're going to do it here too. Final hour of the year, and I'm thrilled that we can talk to Vic Tafur one more time to wrap up the regular season. And Vic, as we begin, thank you so much for everything this year. Give me a big picture analysis from you of the up and downs of this entire season as the Raiders are looking to win 3 in a row against the Chargers.
Yeah, I guess you hit some lows for sure. They lost 10 in a row, but I think they kind of hung in there. I'm not sure fans really care too much about that. They want the draft pick. I understand that, but I think there's something to be said about sticking together and playing through adversity. They've won 2 in a row. Young guys are playing now, and they're getting better, which is also important. So I think there's some positives as we go into the last game of the season.
Yeah, and Vic, with your podcast and all the content that you put out nationally, can you describe this compared to anything you've done in the past in regards to the record and the draft pick, but then the team playing really hard down the stretch and that first draft pick being gone and how the fans are reacting, if you can expound on that?
Yeah, I think some players touched on it. Like, a lot of teams when they lose 10 in a row, and kind of they start to pull out Cancun and vacation plans, but this team kind of hung in there. Not just 5 home guys. The guys they really were counting on. So I think these guys step up, and I think they've taken advantage of some good schedule in the last few games. But I think they're trying to win 3 in a row. They're still obviously behind Antonio Pierce. They want him to be the guy next year. You can see that. So there's all things you can build off. Yeah,
Vic Tafur's our guest. It's very interesting. We've been talking a lot because there's been a lot of losses about they're trying hard, they're playing hard. We all get that. But even when they were playing hard and trying hard, they weren't winning games. They lost 10 in a row. And now something's clicked. They played 2 inferior opponents, but they played clean football. They're finally turning it over. They're not turning it over on offense, but they're turning it over on defense. And what you said about the amount of players that are out on the defensive side of the ball is amazing because Tom Telesco's got to take that into account next year on who he's going to bring back. Obviously, Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins. But what about Malcolm Kuntz, Nate Hobbs, Divine Diablo? Jacorian Bennett would have valuable reps here down the stretch. He'll be back. Trayvon Merrick in a contract year. With all this happening here, how confusing could it be to some of the fans and concerning that before they go get free agents, they might have to take care of signing their own?
Yeah, it requires like a leap of faith for fans to kind of believe that, hey, if you bring the guys back you were counting on this year, then next year can actually be a good season. So you have to have some hope, some faith in what you believe in back in training camp. That defense could be borderline special if all the guys are healthy and got better. So you mentioned Kuntz, he's a big one. You have him back. We're thinking a discount because of his injury. And Lars Spillane's the other guy who's up for he's a big part of his defense, kind of heart and soul beyond Max. So there's a couple guys right there who would be really big as far as trying to get this thing turned around next year, kind of picking up where you left off before guys got hurt.
Vic Tafur from The Athletic. So, Vic, when Jimmy Garoppolo came here, that was a massive decision that the former regime wanted, and Jimmy deserved to be here. He played in a Super Bowl and, won 4 playoff games, but he was never healthy. The decision to go with Gardner Minshew over Aiden O'Connell, I've evolved on that. At the time, coming out of Costa Mesa, I was in the camp of, look, he's got a little bit more experience. I was in Costa Mesa with you. I wasn't impressed with either quarterback at all in the preseason. And when they went with the guy they paid more money to, the guy with more experience, and it didn't work out. Now it seems like everybody's on the same page and liking what Aiden's doing.
Yeah, and fans are yelling about, hey, let's play Aiden from the first place. So as you said, you went to that camp, you had a chance to be out Gardner. He didn't do it. I think Gardner had immensely more experience, more mobility. I think if you look at Gardner's past, his career, you couldn't have predicted how bad he'd be this year. He was really bad, especially with turnover. So that was a killer. A lot of his losses they had this year. So I think now Aiden's going to have to come back and show to be part of the future, whether that's being a starting quarterback or the two guys competing, but essentially part of the future here, something that's another positive.
Vic Tafur, as we wrap it up, kicking off the new year with us and wrapping it up the end of the year with us. How have you covered the Brock Bowers story? You get tremendous locker room access. He doesn't give much in front of the locker, but he's starting to talk a little bit more. The national media coverage picked up heavy starting in that Thursday night game where the rest of the country was starting to sense, Vic, that he had a chance at this record over a month ago. And I thought the Raiders did a good job. They gave him his targets. He caught the ball, and he broke these records.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, especially when you consider all the quarterbacks. Certainly the guys who were hurt, the guys not playing well. He'll be out there every week just catching balls, and double coverage, back of coverage, top cornerbacks coming to go after him. So really impressive. You mentioned how he's not really the most loquacious guy. That's part of his success. He comes in, you know, lunchpail mentality comes in. I look at my seat in the locker room. There's two salutes in his hands. He always has his routine. He's always upping the playbook and getting better. And no real explanation he has for why he's up so well. Like he said, my job is to catch the ball and run, and that's what I do.
All right, Vic, last one. We'll get through the Charger game. How dramatic do you think the offseason is going to be in your timeline with Tom Brady, who's going to be busy with Fox, calling the Super Bowl when they look for a quarterback, scout a quarterback, coaching decision going forward, the personnel that they have to keep, and then wanting to get ahead of free agency and at least being prepared in this building to get the best players to come in here with all the cap space?
That's still a big question mark. I think no one in the building really knows exactly when Brady comes in, how much he will be involved at first. Like, clearly he'll be involved in advisory role for the quarterback situation, but will he come in and want some personnel to say and how best it will be early on? We'll still be doing the broadcasting. So these questions, yes, the answer first before going together. What his impact will be as far as looking at a possible new coach, or there's a lot of rumors about him and Mike Vrabel. So we don't know for sure what's going to happen with time. So that's a big question mark. And beyond that, you kind of know for sure Tusk will be here. So that's a good foundation piece. And Antonio, and that's a lot of speculation nationally about his future. But I think he is okay, and we'll put down a stretch and kind of want another shot next year.
You got it, Vic. Thanks again for everything this year. We'll talk to you coming up in the new year. Thank you.
Have a happy new year.
You too. Vic Tafur from The Athletic. A part of what we try to deliver for you, give you the best insiders. We put them in a 2-week rotation. Vic is every other week on Friday, along with the Dean of the Newsman, Chris Matthews, who joins us on Fridays. And then we give them a break. At the end of the year, I'll be talking to those guys, I'm sure, from Radio Row at the Super Bowl, if they're down there, and we'll go from there. So as Vic talked about it, as he covers the team, there are certain ladies and gentlemen that have more access, and they're doing it. My access is in the building, and I can go in the locker room whenever they have open locker room sessions, but I'm usually on the air. And traveling with the team, when I select to travel with them and they have me on the road, you get a chance to know players at the team hotel, and over the years, I get to know some players better than others. I will tell you that this group will be remembered for playing really hard the entire year under tremendous adversity. In my 27 years with the team, I have never seen a team injured more than this team. I repeat, I have never seen a football team injured where their players are on injured reserve and not coming back or out for extended periods of time than the 2024-2025 Raiders. They were snake bit. They didn't have injuries because they were out of shape and they got heavy in the offseason and they took it lightly. It was a fluke. Injuries in the NFL are people rolling up on your ankles, someone blowing out your knee, straining a calf, blowing out a hamstring, needing shoulder surgery. No one plans for that. And when it happens, like it's happened to Detroit's had a better football team than the Raiders. So they've had better reserves and practice squad players. So they're able to play at a higher level. And their stars, St. Brown and wide receiver, Goff, what they have is stronger than the Raiders. But they lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year. He could actually come back for the Super Bowl possibly, but most likely not. For the Raiders, this season will be defined by, number one, their injuries, to the entire team, which took them out of any type of contention. In reality, and this is my season end show, so I want to put this out here so we have it, and everything's archived on our YouTube channel. I want to say a lot of things I want to get off my chest before next year, which is this week on Thursday. This team, number one topic for me, number one was injuries. Too many guys got hurt. Once Christian Wilkins went down and Diablo went down, it was over. Now, they didn't tell you it was over. And they didn't tell me it was over, but it was over. They were 2-2. They lost to Carolina. They could have been 3-1. 3-1 with all the injuries that they had. They still wouldn't have made the playoffs. But I think they would have won 6 or 7 games, maybe 7 or 8. But once the injuries started mounting, the Raiders didn't have an opportunity to compete for the playoffs. And we saw that when the losing streak started. So that's point number one. Point number two was the quarterback position was not good enough. The decision to sign Gardner Minshew at the time was the right decision. In the long run, it didn't affect the team at all to help them to be a better team. Nothing wrong with Gardner. Great guy. Good player. He's been a very good player at times in this league. But we had a good player in Derek Carr years ago, who was a very good player but never won a playoff game. Gardner Minshew was supposed to be a guy that kept the Raiders in the hunt all year long. He got banged up, he got injured, and he wasn't the player that we thought he was. He definitely was the human being and the teammate we thought he was. But call it for how you see it. Call it for how you see it. That's what happened with him. So that's point number two. Point number three, which is very important when it comes to everything that's happening. So injuries and the quarterback play. Point number three to me is the running back play was a miss. I got it wrong. When I get it wrong, you let me know or I'll let you know. Zamir White, I thought, was going to be a breakout star in this league. That was one player that I thought you didn't have to touch that position. Not that I didn't want to keep Josh Jacobs. Oh, my God. If they decided to pay Josh Jacobs, you think Josh Jacobs would be having the year here that he's having in Green Bay? No way. Not even close. Look at the struggles of this offensive line. But I thought Zamir White, with his youth and ability to take the next step, would. He did not do that. Alexander Madison played well when he was healthy. He got hurt. And we're seeing Amir Abdullah clearly play at a fine level. Really excited about the way he played. Point number three. Point number four, Devontae Adams quit on this team. Devontae will be invited back. Devontae, not to play, I don't think, but Devontae Adams, once a Raider, always a Raider, was tremendous in this community, a leader, well-liked. I thought a very good teammate. Devontae saw what the record was going to be. Devontae saw that this team was not going to compete and he wanted to get out. And he chose to escape from Vegas and leave, and that was his decision. And it will have an effect on his legacy with the Raiders, a clear effect on his legacy with the Raiders, a team that he grew up loving, because he wanted out. And in our times with this organization dating back 65 years, there's plenty of players that wanted to get out at some point, but the majority of them didn't want to leave during the season and leave their teammates behind. They wanted to leave at the end of the season. They wanted to leave when they weren't offered a fair contract. But most players in NFL history, in the history of this league, have wanted to play for the Raiders. I'm not making that up. Go to the archives of the Silver and Black. Go to NFL Films. See the countless interviews, the hundreds of interviews of players, such as Lyle Alzado, players who just every time they get in front of a microphone said, I wanted to be a Raider. I wanted to play for the Raiders. You know that's true. There's not many who said, I don't want to be a Raider. Randy Moss said on the way out that he's not a Raider, but he didn't say that coming in when he was still getting paid by Al Davis. Devontae Adams claimed he wanted to be a Raider, and in a short amount of time, he left this organization and forced this organization to trade him. He made the organization trade him. He wanted out. Point number four. Point number five. On the 2004 season, the offensive line wasn't good enough. The defensive line was good enough. The defensive line backups are good enough. The offensive line has been going through another season where they're trying to figure it out. You can't have a season start with Jackson Powers Johnson not available to play in camp and Colton Miller not playing at all in camp in the preseason. Right there, many thought the Raiders were doomed. I didn't. I thought, the guys would come back, be ready to play. But the offensive line did not live up to the hype. Now they're playing better. They are clearly playing better, which is important going forward. They're playing better. But the issue is the offensive line needs to be fixed. So those are 5 points with the team that have struggled this year. The health of the team, Devontae Adams, the offensive line, the running back room led by Zamir White. There were problems with this team, but I start off with injuries really being what kept them out of the postseason and kept them out of being competitive. I'll get to the positives coming up here because one thing, man. After this year and this ride, I'm going to leave on a positive note. We'll get into all of that coming up. Also, Jeff Sherman will join us over at the Westgate. We'll go through some of the moving lines. We'll be thanking all of our partners personally. I'm actually going to their establishments, thanking them for being our partners this year. PT's Fuels the Monologue, and they're fantastic, 5 to 7, midnight to 2. The best happy hour in town. Ari's on the board producing today as Bobby's doing the Golden Knights, who have a day game today. Live from Raiders headquarters, JT.
You can stay in touch with your favorite stations and shows no matter your location by simply downloading the free LB Sports Network app for both iPhone and Android. Go to the App Store or Google Play.
All right, everybody, I'm going to go about 5 more minutes and then thank everybody.
Good to go. Raider Nation Radio, ESPN Las Vegas, Fox Sports Las Vegas, 12:30 The Game. It's all part of the LB Sports Network and can all be streamed.
Yeah, you don't agree with Jimmy G. He's a Patriot. Well, you better get used to Tom Brady. He's a Patriot. Better get used to that.
Hi, I'm Dr. Peter Stahl, board-certified urologist and senior vice president of men's sexual health at HIMSS. In my 12 years of practice as a urologist.
All right, I'm going to stay here for about another 5 minutes, and then when Jeff Sherman comes, I'll bail out, and then I'll wish you all a Happy New Year, and we'll be back on Thursday. Love Hobbs. He misses too many games. I agree. I love Hobbs. He misses too many games. Vegas Flytrap says, JT has always been abrasive at times. Yes, I've been very abrasive. Try doing what I'm doing and tell me you wouldn't be abrasive from time to time. Tell me about that. Hung up on me after the Seattle game in 2000. Wow, that's an honor, man. I hung up on you 24 years ago, and you're still here on YouTube. I love that, man. Glenn says we could have been in the playoffs. I don't think we were a playoff team this year. I didn't have them in the playoffs, even if everybody was healthy. Yeah, tickets are going pretty cheap at the end of the year, so I'd buy tickets and go. Glenn says the Bricktator. Yes, we are the Bricktator. Well, we got this thing up to close to 6,000 subscribers. I know that number isn't blowing everybody away, but I'm too busy. If I was doing this full time, and that's all I had, and I didn't have a radio shows and 2 radio shows, it'd be different. So we're building this thing slower, and we're building it the right way, man. And I think we got a lot of our technical bullshit out of the way. I hope you agree on that. From time to time, the Wi-Fi might go out or the microphone might drop, but we're trying to get better at this every day. I'm going to do a live stream tonight with Tom Looney, my podcast partner, probably in the 4:30 hour. And we're going to do our year in review, so please stick around for that. All right, you got Jeff's number? Are you there? Okay. Yeah, I'll send you Sherman's number now. Yeah. Okay. I don't drink a lot of soda at all, but this is my last soda. I will not have one in 2025. A health kick is coming, hopefully, and it's coming good. So, in my schedule, the food and the intake of not alcohol, I'll have my Tito's and my Modelo, but none of this. This is the last one. I'm not going to say forever, but close. I'm about to say goodbye. Happy New Year, everyone. JT back with you live from Raiders headquarters. Ari in for Bobby today. The Vegas Golden Knights are playing. Want to thank all the bricklayers, everybody on our YouTube channel. I'm signing off now on the simulcast before Jeff Sherman joins us. And I want to thank everybody who helped us build that platform going forward in sports media. If you don't have a presence on X or YouTube, or if some people do TikTok, I don't, whatever it is, that's where a younger generation of people are finding us. So we appreciate everybody who's there. And please, before the end of the year, subscribe to our channel. I'm giving away signed copies of my book, The Handoff, to new subscribers at random here over the next 48 hours. That's JT the Brick YT if you do that, and I appreciate it there. So I gave you some of the negatives of the Raiders, the positives of the Raiders going forward. So glasses half empty, now glasses half full. Brock Bowers, big believer in him being a generational player. They got him. If they didn't get him, we'd never have Brock Bowers ever. He'd be gone. He could have been a Jaguar, a Falcon, could have been a Bronco, should have been a Jet. Should have been a Jet. How did the Jets not take Brock Bowers with Aaron Rodgers there and what they had? And they didn't do that, and he was right there. And they didn't do that. So we got Brock Bowers going forward. That's a positive. Other positives, cap space. The Raiders have the most money they've ever had as an organization because, A, the cap goes up, and they have a lot of cap space. So I believe that the Raiders will be able to go out and buy players, and I mean that, buy players on the open market in free agency that they have to now go get. Okay, a lot of people say you don't build the team. You don't build the team through free agency. I would agree. The hell with that now. We tried to do it the other way with the drafts. Alex Leatherwood, Damon Arnett, Cleve Farrell, who's actually playing for the Commanders in the playoffs, right? You go through all the players that the Raiders tried to draft and build through the draft. It did not work. With fine men who were in charge of the draft. Dave Ziegler, Mike Mayock, Reggie McKenzie, Tom Telesco. Now I have full confidence in him. But they have to spend money and big money quickly. You know, a player like T. Higgins, reports are that he wants to stay in Cincinnati for less money. I'll believe it when I see it. Do you want to live in Cincinnati, Ohio, or Las Vegas, Nevada with no state taxes and play at Allegiant Stadium and play at this practice facility where I'm at? You tell me. I mean, it was less than 20 years ago where they were packing boxed lunches on the flights to Cincinnati, and they had to use their own towels once a week in the locker room. Give me a break that he wants to be a Bengal for life. No one on God's green earth ever wanted to be a Bengal for life. No one. It's all of a sudden it's going to be T. Higgins. T. Higgins could be the one wide receiver on this team if the Raiders go get him early. The other thing I'm excited about is the draft because I'm not a tanker. I never thought the Raiders were going to lose 13 or 14 in a row. Some people did. I thought they were nuts. I turned out to be right. They were wrong. There were fans, a small minority, that wanted to lose games. I told them, being behind the scenes of the team, they weren't going to lose all these games. They were trying too hard to win. I was right. They were wrong. So now the tanking conversation's over. It's over. Even if they beat the Chargers, will they drop farther? Yeah. They'll have a lesser draft pick, but they're still going to have a high one. And they have extra draft picks, as Lincoln Kennedy told me in the first hour. They have the Devontae third-round pick. We'll see what happens there. But I think the Raiders, I'm very optimistic with Tom Brady coming into the building with Tom Telesco. And whoever they decide who's going to be the head coach, you know I'm really tight with Coach Pierce in a way from a professional aspect of it and always wanting the coach to be back. What happens here is they're going to have the ability to get better players. Now, you can say that every year, and I have said that every year. I'm very optimistic when we go into the draft every year. But I can't be optimistic like that until now because I have more confidence in Tom Telesco and his experience in the first round in the draft than I've had in the other gentlemen who were here before. And some of those guys are still my friends. I speak highly of them. But I think Telesco will be better at the draft, especially high in the draft, to either move up. I don't think they'll move down, but you never know if the quarterbacks aren't there and they like a quarterback and maybe moving back to get another pick. But I think the ability to go get a quarterback in free agency, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We're going to get a quarterback in the draft high or in free agency as a priority. I can't imagine the Raiders not doing that. One of those two things should be able to happen. So with all that being said, I didn't think we'd be in this position this year. I didn't think it'd be a 4-win team. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs, but I didn't think they'd be a 4-win team. So I have no choice other than to be optimistic about next year. I know some people bust my blank on my tone, and some days I'm more aggressive than others. Yeah, try being me. Okay, that's going to happen here. But normally in my life, I'm really optimistic about life and the future, always. I come into the new year with resolutions and feeling great about my family, health, and happiness. I'm very optimistic going into next year because, God, eventually they're going to get it right. And they haven't gotten it right in the draft until recently with Brock Bowers, Jackson Bowers-Johnson, and DJ Glaze. And I think that if Tom can do that in the first 4 out of 5 picks or the first 5 out of 7 picks, and then bring in a minimum of 3 free agents along with signing some of the players that they have to sign, I'm very optimistic. Let's get to Jeff Sherman, VP of Risk Management over at the Westgate. Jeff, as we begin, thank you for everything this year. You're a real busy guy. You got a big job here in town, and thanks for coming on with us, reliable every 2 weeks, if not more. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. What went on with the game last night? So tell me how difficult it is to handicap a game against a team that doesn't have to win but wants to win in Detroit to get that stink off of them from last year. And the Niners, you knew were going to come into that game playing with pride.